躍動する筋肉。これは映画ではない、目の前の現実だ。大満足の手応え、プラモデルリアルアクションゴジラシリーズ。
It pulls the spinning attention wires down. Oh no! They say he's got to go! Go, go, Godzilla! Woo! Sorry. So sorry. I'm sorry, I don't mean to subject you to my douchey singing. I promise I shall never do that ever again. Anyway, so let's talk about Godzilla King of the Monsters. And this is going to be a full-on spoiler video, so if you don't want the movie spoiled, you're going to have to get fucking lost, because I'm going to spoil the shit out of this motherfucker. And this video is going to be from the perspective of a hardcore Kaiju fan. So if you're not familiar with Godzilla movies or Kaiju movies, just stop watching the video right now, because you're going to be completely fucking lost. Okay, so as I stated in past videos, I'm a really big fan of Godzilla, and if you want to put me on the spot and ask me what are my favorite Godzilla films, off the top of my head, I guess I would say Godzilla 54, Final Wars, Godzilla vs. Destroyer, Godzilla vs. Biollante, and Invasion of the Astro Monster. I'm also very partial to the Heisei era of Godzilla films too, because those are the films I grew up watching. Now, unless you were exiled to an Arctic cave, you might have noticed there have been some new Godzilla films released in the past couple of years. The first being Godzilla 2014, produced by Legendary Pictures, which is a movie I really didn't like when I first saw it. Obviously, it was better than Godzilla 98, but overall I found Godzilla 2014 pretty disappointing. It was one of the biggest fucking cock teases of a fucking movie I have ever fucking seen. There's that awesome scene in Hawaii that builds up to Godzilla's first appearance, and it's done really well. That scene is like 40 minutes into the movie, so you're really psyched to finally see Godzilla. The giant wave comes in, and all the people are looking into the darkness over the ocean. Then the soldiers shoot up the flares, and all you see is Godzilla's chest. The sequence fucking rules. But then, when you get to the airport, you see Godzilla roar, then it fucking cuts to the dumb TV screen, and then you just get glimpses of Godzilla's battle with the Muto. I was so fucking pissed off at that. The movie basically lost me right there. The ending was gonna have to be some spectacular shit to make up for the blue balls that airport scene left me with. The ending was gonna have to be the fucking Miranese knot of Kaiju battles. However, when Godzilla 2014 eventually gets to its climax, the fight between Godzilla and the Mutos is kind of a letdown. It does have moments of awesomeness, like when Godzilla shoots his atomic breath into the mouth of the female Muto and her head gets ripped off her body. That's badass. But all in all, it doesn't make up for the fact that Godzilla is absent for a good chunk of the movie, and we only get to see one real fight in the entirety of the film. So then, in 2016, Toho released Shin Godzilla, which is a movie I reviewed on this channel, and you are free to check it out if you are so inclined. Altogether, I did like Shin Godzilla. I thought it was an improvement over Godzilla 2014, albeit not by much. I thought Godzilla's redesign was really cool, I liked the destruction scenes, and I thought Satomi Ishihara was fucking hot. But like I said in my Shin Godzilla review, I think the approach to the film was interesting, but it wasn't always necessarily entertaining. Focusing the film around government bureaucracy is something that's never been done in a Godzilla movie before, but maybe there's a reason why it's never been done before. A lot of that shit isn't that compelling, and quite frankly, it could be pretty fucking boring. But unlike Godzilla 2014, I thought Shin Godzilla made up for its shortcomings with the Godzilla destruction sequences, and I thought the human characters in Shin Godzilla were much more likable than the human characters in Godzilla 2014. Because, you know, Satomi Ishihara is fucking hot, and that's a pretty likable character trait if you ask me. Anyways, let's talk about the shit that really matters. Godzilla King of the Monsters. I'm not gonna mince words. I thought the movie was fucking awesome. I really enjoyed it. It took 3 tries, but Hollywood finally made a real Godzilla movie. I liked Godzilla King of the Monsters way more than Godzilla 2014, and shockingly enough, I think I even like it more than Shin Godzilla. It's so weird to think I actually prefer an American Godzilla movie over a Japanese one. I think that might even be one of the signs of the apocalypse, and you know, now that I mention it, I'm pretty sure I remember seeing that in Revelations. I watched as he opened the 6th seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth, and Hollywood made a good Godzilla movie. One even better than the Japanese. Yikes, I am so fucking freaked out. I don't know what to think. Anyways, I digress. So what I really liked about Godzilla King of the Monsters is it felt like a throwback to the Heisei series, mixed with GMK and mixed with Invasion of the Astro Monster. Unlike Godzilla 2014, this film has more of a sci-fi comic book feel, which is very in line with the Godzilla films of the 90s. For the entire movie, the human characters are flying around in this stealth stealth bomber looking spaceship. And for the life of me, I don't know why they just didn't call it the Super X. In my mind, it was the Super X. If somebody had just said it out loud, I would have been so fucking happy. Also, the way Godzilla is handled in King of the Monsters had the same kind of anti-hero vibe as the Heisei series. Even though he was helping humanity, he always seemed like he was 2 steps away from just fucking vaporizing everybody. There's even a line where someone says something to the effect of, "He's protecting us." Then somebody replies with, "Yes, but for how long?" That line gave me flashbacks to Godzilla vs King Ghidorah. You know, the part of the movie where Godzilla stops Ghidorah from destroying the city, but as soon as Ghidorah is dead, Godzilla starts fucking destroying the city himself. That is my favorite take on Godzilla. I love anti-hero Godzilla, and King of the Monsters did a really great job of making Godzilla a hero, but still hinting he's a dangerous, uncontrollable force. In the past, I mentioned I really wasn't excited about Ghidorah being the villain in King of the Monsters, and the reason I felt that way is because Ghidorah has been the go-to villain in the Godzilla series for like the past 50 years. Every time they need a villain for a new Godzilla series, they always go back to Ghidorah. It's the same thing they do with Batman. Every time there's a new Batman, there's gotta be a new Joker. It just feels lazy, especially when you're dealing with characters who have a rich tapestry of villains. There are so many monsters in the Godzilla series, there's no reason to keep circling back to Ghidorah. I'm actually still hoping for Bagan to show up in one of these movies. But even though I wasn't thrilled about the prospect of seeing Ghidorah in another film, I was ultimately won over by this incarnation of the character. This is definitely a pretty fucking metal version of Ghidorah. He's not up there with Kaiser Ghidorah from Final Wars, but I think he's in the ballpark. I like that King of the Monsters called attention to the idea Ghidorah is not only the rival of Godzilla, but Ghidorah is also the antithesis of Godzilla. In this film, Godzilla is the protector of the world, and Ghidorah is the invader of the world. They are both kings fighting to control a kingdom. It's an idea that's much more subtle in other Godzilla movies, but I like the fact that King of the Monsters made a point of calling attention to this idea and making it the focal point of the climax of the story. Like I said, I was really impressed with this version of Ghidorah, and I thought they added some nice touches that made this iteration unique and separated him from pre-existing versions of the character. I love that there were moments where Ghidorah's 3 heads were fighting with each other and they were snapping at each other. It's the first time I ever looked at Ghidorah's heads as being individual characters and not just extensions of the same monster. The final fight between Godzilla and Ghidorah in Godzilla King of the Monsters actually reminded me a lot of the final fight in GMK, but with the roles reversed. In GMK, Godzilla kills Mothra, and Mothra gives her power to Ghidorah so he can kill Godzilla. But in King of the Monsters, Ghidorah kills Mothra, and Mothra gives her power to Godzilla so he can kill Ghidorah. And I actually think I like the fight between Ghidorah and Godzilla in King of the Monsters more than the fight in GMK. The fight in GMK is good, but once they fall in the water, I think the fight becomes kind of a mess. They're just floating, and it's dark, and I can't tell what the fuck is going on. I never liked that part of the movie. I always thought the fight in GMK started off really strong, but then it kind of got weaker as it went along. Plus, I never liked the fact that Mothra dies, gives her power to Ghidorah, then Ghidorah dies, and Yuri's father's the one who kills Godzilla. It just undermines the monsters and their deaths, and it makes them feel kind of fucking pointless. I think the reason the fight in King of the Monsters works better than the fight in GMK is because I would say it's a much more satisfying fight from start to finish. And the way that sequence ends with Godzilla fulfilling his destiny as the true King of the Monsters was fucking awesome. It's probably the best ending shot out of all of the Godzilla films. You know, I should probably also mention that there are people out there who want to bitch that a true Godzilla movie needs guys in fucking rubber suits and no CGI. But the cool thing about the CGI character models in King of the Monsters is it gives the monsters a range of motion that really is impossible with rubber suits. And that works to the film's advantage, because even though we've seen Godzilla fight Ghidorah plenty of times in the past, now that they're CGI models, we get to see them move in ways we've never seen before, and it makes the fight with Godzilla and Ghidorah feel very fresh. I also thought Rodan was awesome. I thought his design was pretty cool, and the sequence of Rodan destroying Mexico felt like a modern version of Rodan 56. Also, when Rodan was flying and the jets were attacking him, that actually reminded me a lot of the scene in Gamera 3 when Iris is flying and the jets were attacking her. I like that Rodan was given a moment to shine in his own dedicated destruction scene. With Godzilla, Ghidorah, and Mothra all in the same film, I was afraid Rodan might get lost in the shuffle, but it was cool. They gave him his own solo destruction sequence. I'm not a fan of this new Mothra design though. She looks like a fucking boss from Metroid. It's so jarring because from far away, you see the wings and it looks like Mothra, but then when she gets closer, it's like, what the fuck is that supposed to be? They kept the classic design for the other characters. Rodan just looks like an updated version of the Rodan from Final Wars. Why they chose to redesign Mothra and make her look needlessly complicated is fucking beyond me. Just make Mothra look like Mothra. This shit isn't hard. I'm also fucking bummed out about the lack of the Mothra fairies. If they have the balls to make Ghidorah from space, then they should have the fucking balls to have the fucking Cosmos girls running around and singing the fucking Mothra song. That was the problem with GMK2. It's a mistake that should not have been repeated in this film. The Mothra twins need to make a fucking comeback, goddammit. Although I do have hope they'll show up in a sequel because King of the Monsters planted a lot of seeds I'm hoping will pay off in the future. In the end credits, they find another Mothra larva, so it is possible we'll see the Cosmos protecting the new Mothra. Also, the military uses the Oxygen Destroyer in this movie. So maybe in the next film, the Oxygen Destroyer will end up mutating with the sea life, creating fucking Destroyer. That would be so fucking cool. And after Ghidorah's battle with Godzilla, all that's left of Ghidorah is his head. So then someone fucking takes Ghidorah's head and then gives it to Tywin Lannister. So in the next movie, you'll probably get to see fucking Tywin Lannister operating Mecha King Ghidorah, which sounds awesome. Yeah, I totally forgot to mention Charles Dance. Tywin Lannister himself appears in this movie. He's basically the human villain of the film. Charles Dance is an amazing actor, and he's good in the scenes he was in, but he really wasn't given a lot to do. He's the head of a group of paramilitary eco-terrorists, which sounds so ridiculous when you say it out loud. But you know, when I was watching the movie and I saw Charles Dance walking with the soldiers, I was like, if you gave that motherfucker an eye patch, he would make a really good big boss. I've heard people complain about the silly story and paper-thin characters in Godzilla King of the Monsters, but for me that shit is not a deal breaker. The reason being, Godzilla King of the Monsters is a film that puts the monster characters front and center. And I think that's a great choice, especially after Godzilla 2014, where Godzilla was regulated to being on a fucking TV screen and you spent the entire movie looking at Kick-Ass. I didn't give a shit about Aaron Taylor Johnson and his fucking dumbass family. I wanted to see Godzilla, goddammit. I think the people complaining about the ridiculous story in King of the Monsters and how the plot only exists to get monsters to start fighting with each other have evidently never seen a Godzilla movie before. Because that's basically the core of most Godzilla movies. The plot to Godzilla King of the Monsters is basically eco-terrorists are taking control of giant monsters because they want to destroy humanity because they think that's the only way they could save the world. And as ridiculous as that plot sounds, it's not any more ridiculous than any other plot from a Godzilla movie. Take Destroy All Monsters, for example, a classic film in the Godzilla series. The plot to Destroy All Monsters is space women from the planet Kelak have taken control of giant monsters because they want to destroy humanity because they think that's the only way they could take over the world. As someone familiar with the over-the-top nature of Godzilla movies, I don't find the plot to Godzilla King of the Monsters all that unusual, and it seems pretty fucking consistent with the other crazy plots of Godzilla movies. If there was a twist in the third act that revealed Charles Dance and the other eco-terrorists were actually aliens, then King of the Monsters would basically be like every other Godzilla movie from the 60s. Now, that's not to say Godzilla movies should only have ridiculous plots and can't have deep characters. They most certainly could. Godzilla 54 is one of the best movies ever made about the aftermath of nuclear disaster, and Gamera 3 Revenge of Iris is a brilliant character study. Kaiju movies most certainly can be thought-provoking and dramatically compelling, but Godzilla King of the Monsters isn't trying to be like one of those films. Godzilla King of the Monsters feels like something that could have existed between 1991's Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah and 1992's Godzilla vs. Mothra. The film feels like a throwback to the anti-hero-driven, sci-fi comic book-esque Godzilla films of the 90s. It may not have the deepest story in the world, but it delivers on the giant monster action, which I think is the goal of the movie. Complaining about the lack of character development in King of the Monsters is like complaining about the lack of character development in Jackie Chan movies. Sure, you can criticize it and complain the plot doesn't make any sense, but you'd be missing the fucking point. Now, just because my review has been one big fanboy orgasm doesn't mean I loved everything about the movie. There were definitely things I didn't like, and there were definitely things I thought they could have improved. I liked Ken Watanabe as Dr. Serizawa, but he could have been handled a lot better. Like Charles Dance, he isn't really given a lot to do, and the human story would have been much more interesting if he was a stronger character. Dr. Serizawa and his family are survivors of the atomic bomb attacks on Hiroshima. So like Godzilla, Dr. Serizawa is somebody whose life has been shaped by nuclear energy, which explains his sympathy and fascination with Godzilla, but his parallels with Godzilla are never fully explored, which is a shame because it feels like a missed opportunity, especially now since they killed off the character. I was really bummed out that they killed off Serizawa because I was hoping he would be like the newer version of Miki from the Heisei series. Serizawa should have lived, and he could have shown up in the sequels as a secondary character who guides the newer main characters. I thought it was cool they included the Oxygen Destroyer in this movie, but it really did come off as kind of a throwaway reference. The Oxygen Destroyer is an important part of the lore of Godzilla, so it really should have been more of a focal point of the story. But honestly, I'm willing to overlook the rushed reference if they just use it as a way to fucking set up Destroyer for a future film, because like I said before, Destroyer is fucking awesome, and the thought of him appearing in one of these films makes me cry with tears of joy. enjoy. I also don't understand why they have to keep hiding the monsters in the dark and the rain. Shin Godzilla had the fraction of the budget of King of the Monsters, and Shin Godzilla managed to have most of its Godzilla scenes in daylight. Legendary Pictures has the money and the computing power to render the Godzilla scenes in daylight, but for whatever reason they don't. I guess it's a time issue? I have no fucking clue. I don't know what the problem is, but I'm getting really fucking sick of every American VFX movie rendering all their effects shots in a fucking dark and rainy scene. But overall, I do have to say the visuals in Godzilla King of the Monsters are fucking great. The shot of Ghidorah in front of the cross is fucking badass. It's safe to say I think it's the most fucking metal moment in the history of Godzilla films. It would have been so fucking cool if they would have just started playing Master of Puppets by Metallica. And it would have made sense too, because Ghidorah is controlling the other monsters, so he is very much the puppet master. And regardless of whatever you think about Godzilla King of the Monsters, whether you like the movie or you hate the movie, you have to give the movie props, because the shot from the poster is actually in the movie. This shot right here appears in the movie exactly the way you see it. When was the last time that ever fucking happened? When was the last time a poster promised something and the finished movie delivered it? I think that's pretty fucking awesome, and it's something that should be respected, especially when you consider the fact that we live in a world where like 90% of the footage you see in a movie trailer isn't even in the final fucking movie. And that scene is a great scene. I think it's my favorite scene in the movie. It's the part when Godzilla is revived, then they start playing the Godzilla music, and then Godzilla shoots his atomic breath into the air. No joke, my eyes started to tear up. I actually started to cry a little bit at that part. Yeah, I know I'm a fucking bitch. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I was just very moved by that part of the movie. I felt like I was a kid again watching a 90s Godzilla movie. I was so happy they finally played the Godzilla music in a Godzilla movie. Anyway, like I said, I really enjoyed the movie. Shin Godzilla was a nice modern interpretation of Godzilla, but Godzilla King of the Monsters felt like a classic Godzilla film, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. The entire time I was watching it, I had this fucking goofy smile on my face the whole fucking time. Well, anyway, after fanboying out and admitting to being a bitch, I think this is a good place to end this fucking long-winded bullshit. And so, until we meet again.